Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Sharp and welcome to All the Stuff. Today with my lovely co-hosts, Lisa Carpenter and Jen Turrell, we are going to be talking about setting yourself up for success. And we want to talk a little bit about the practical part of how do you set yourself up for success when it comes to decluttering, when it comes to your nutrition and you taking care of your body and taking care of your finances. So we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts today about like where can we even start when we're just in total overwhelm and it feels like the project, whatever that project is, getting yourself in shape, decluttering your house, starting to deal with your finances. Where do you even begin? Because mostly people just get frozen, right? So when we don't have sort of a plan, and it has to be a really simple one, we can just stay in that place of just not knowing where to begin for longer than we need to. And that's a painful place to be. So Lisa Carpenter, do you have any suggestions?
I love this topic because as much as I love digging into all the stuff under the stuff, right, the mindset piece, the doing part is so important as well. We have to have the systems and structures in place to support ourselves, right? Like you can't just home your way and mindset your way to a full bank account or a healthy body. Like it doesn't work that way. That's part of it. But you also have to have, like I said, the doing pieces. So for me, the biggest thing that I get my clients start with is food logging. Nobody likes it. Everybody thinks that it's, this torturous device. They've linked it to dieting and deprivation. But the fact is, food logging, just tracking what you eat without judgment as a tool to see what you're putting in your body can create huge amounts of clarity, and it creates this accountability. We have the women I work with tend to have this ability to just go unconscious. And I know I've done it in the past with my money. If I don't track my money coming in and coming out, all of a sudden I'm like, where'd all my money go? It's because I'm not even paying attention to how I'm spending. So I'm able to do that now with my money without any emotional attachment to it. And that's really the place I want my clients to get to in terms of food, not being attached to the process of logging, but actually writing it down. The next step that I really love them to take is food prep. And again, food prep isn't about making your life harder. It actually gives you space. It clears all the clutter up in your brain, because when you're trying to eat healthy, if you're constantly thinking about what do I need to eat? Where am I going to get food? I don't have anything in the fridge. Like that's a lot of mental clutter, which means that you're not really living in your life. So by planning out and doing some food prep, it means you've got a fridge full of stuff that you can grab and go. And I look at food prep as self-care. And when you can flip the switch on that, instead of feeling like, oh, this is a to-do, I don't want to do this, and look at it as this is how I'm going to support myself. This is an essential piece of self-care, like brushing my hair, brushing my teeth, having a shower. It's such an easy place to start. And to make it fun, like I put on an audiobook, like that's time for me. I'm listening to a book or I'm listening to my tunes. And I enjoy that time in the kitchen, but I don't make it challenging. So when I talk about meal prep, it's simple, like get some chicken cooked, get some hard-boiled eggs done, chop up your vegetables, have some rice or potatoes or whatever it is you want in the fridge. Get the different pieces of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, all those things cut up and in your fridge, vegetables and fruits, because then you can literally just go, okay, what do I have cooked? How can I throw it all together? But I personally keep things super simple. I don't eat fancy. I just like to toss things into a bowl, add some condiments to it, add some spices to it, grab and go, right? Keep it simple, pursue fancy later. And, I'm like the swim coach that doesn't like to get wet and can't actually swim. I'm the food coach that really, I don't love cooking. I'm not a foodie. My food doesn't need to be a party. So those are probably my two biggest tips. If you're wanting to take better care of yourself, you've got to actually pay attention and see what's happening in front of you. And you have to spend some time doing food prep. But both pieces need to come from a place of self-love and self-care, not I'm punishing myself, and this is how I'm punishing myself. And we're going to talk about that on another episode, the difference between moving towards pleasure versus moving away from pain. Mm-hmm. But I would love to hear, because I know for me, like I said, tracking my money in and out, not being emotionally attached to it was a huge starting point for me. And in fact, I just tracked what was coming in. I didn't even start with what was going out, because that's the emotional place I was at. I'm like, okay, I can track what's going in. But I'd love to hear the tips, because I think I know them. I'd love to hear some of the tips that Jen gives her people in her program around, creating some easy starting points.
Before we jump in with Jen, I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to ask one question, because I know this is something that I have struggled with, Lisa, and you've helped me with, and I think it would probably be beneficial to other people to hear. So when we hear, logging your food, that is sort of that, like you said, that's a red flag that can sort of, it's like, it's really great in theory, but then when you actually have to do it, it's like, oh, this feels really hard. So what are a couple of ways that you can sort of circumnavigate that feeling of it's going to be hard? Like, what could you do to make it a little less painful? Because as we know that it's the lead up to it, but then when you're actually doing it, it's usually not as bad.
It's not a big deal.
Heavy. Yeah.
I'm a big believer, again, in simple. So logging your food doesn't need to be like, you don't need a fancy tracking app. I'm not interested in calories. Like, there's things like MyFitnessPal, but they can get, again, it's like in the beginning, it's like you're looking up everything and it becomes this big to do. I'm a big fan of pen and paper. I'm also a big fan of, the notes app option on my iPhone. So I can just type in, like, anytime I eat, I'll just put in something so that it's there, so that I see it. Take pictures of your food. Like, you can take pictures of your food every time you eat, and at the end of the day, you'll have a really good overview of what you ate. Again, it's not about restricting. Food logs initially for my clients aren't even about changing anything. It's just about creating consciousness. That's it. And being able to say, like, I'm going to have this, I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to move on. When it comes to actually changing their behaviors with food logging changes a little bit, because then it ties in with the prepping your food, because it's actually about making a plan and then doing your best to say, okay, this is what I planned out for my day and I'm going to follow it. Kind of like, if you got to pick up Susie at 12 from swimming and Bobby needs to be at basketball camp at, 10, you have to kind of be there. You got to follow the plan. It doesn't mean you can't take, you can't be sidetracked halfway through or change what you want to do between the pickups, but those pickups have to happen. So food logs morph over time, but I'm really about meeting people where they're at and really just kind of creating the consciousness first. So keep it simple. Like, if you turn food logging into this big overwhelming thing, it will become that. And a lot of people do that as a way that they don't even understand that they're sabotaging themselves right out of the gate, because it doesn't need to be that way. So if you feel this resistance around food logs, ask yourself, what is the resistance about? What do I need to do? What do I need to stop doing? So if I need to be being super detail oriented is driving me crazy, do I need to stop doing that? And what do I need to start doing? How can I make this simple for myself? So I'm going to take a picture every time I eat for the next 3 days, and kind of then I have an overview of where to start. Simple.
Yeah, I love that. I have found that, like, within my own business, because I help people declutter, but I also help them organize, that people tend to they gravitate toward things that are really complex and really pretty. And it's just not practical. So, and it looks really good on Pinterest. It looks really good on that blog. It looks really good, out there when somebody else is doing it. And then we end up playing this sort of record, this internal story of, I suck. I can't do this. Everything, it's too hard for me. Don't even bother. If I can't make it this good, don't even start, or I'll start tomorrow when I have, when everything is perfect and, the sun has just come up and I have a fresh new day, that sort of thing. That sort of fresh new thinking, I think, really gets people stuck. And so when I started working with you in your EAT program, that I was like, oh, what sort of apps should I get? Oh, how should I track this? And then I was like, no, yeah. And you really sort of gave me a fresh perspective, especially about taking the photos, because that's actually something that I have my clients do when I'm trying to get them to shift the perspective of their houses. I'll have them take photos in different areas because you just stop seeing it. So I love having that quick and easy, just take a picture, just put it in your note app, just write it down. Like when I food log, now I've worked with you for so long that I have flipped. So I know when I'm doing my meal, when I'm doing my logging, it's like forward. It's what I will be doing the next day. It's what is my plan. And I have been doing it for so long, I can fill it out really quick, or I just know what it's supposed to look like. Yeah. But to begin with, I literally just went into my kids' room and grabbed a notebook full of graphing paper and, got out my little ruler, and my kids were like, "What are you doing, Mom?" They're like, "Oh, you're doing it like a project." And I was like, I'm just marking out little squares for my day. And I did that, and I did it for, I don't know, a couple months, and then it became very ingrained and all of that. But yeah, it just doesn't have to be hard. So I love
old school pen and paper.
Yeah.
I think that something changes in our brain when we actually write things down, as opposed to typing things up on an app. So yeah, keep it simple. I'm so glad. And that's the truth of it. Once you've done it long enough, it does become second nature, right? You don't really need to log your food anymore because you kind of have always in this running tally at the end of the day. You just know. Every now and then, though, I even go back to food logging because I just need to get conscious again and recognize how many sour keys have made it into my
right. I'm drifting away from complex carbs and going into simple carb lab.
Yeah, it's not so good.
Yeah, not so great. Yeah.
I'm human. All right, Jen.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jen.
I'm going to chime in on Lisa Carpenter's point here for a second, just because food logging is something that I've struggled with a lot. And the thing that worked best for me was taking photos. Not because I don't like pen and paper, but because my phone is kind of the one thing that's always with me at all times. And it's so easy for me to set up. Yeah. I really love, I don't know, I have multiple legal pads around for different projects. I'll do one project on a legal pad, and I have them here on my desk. They're in nice, stacked piles. But but it's so easy for me to leave a pad somewhere. I mean, the one other thing that I always have with me is my planner. I keep that with me. But I found a lot of resistance to writing down food when I did it, and I do think some is the desire to preserve the unconsciousness about what I'm eating. It's protecting me. It's allowing me to still eat what I want if I don't write it down. If I write it down, then I have to be accountable for it.
Right.
And it is definitely something that translates over into my money tips. The thing with the money tips is, though, if you use your cards and different payment systems, this does not work for cash, but an easy way to track your money is using a system like mint.com, which is what I use. I put all my accounts in there, and you can see how much cash you take out. It won't count your cash for you. If you're a cash person, you will have to enter in what cash spending you're doing. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, especially now that we do PayPal, Amazon One Click, we have all these ways of paying for things, Apple Pay. Technology can track all of that for you. So the clarity of what you're actually spending right now is step one, is seeing exactly where you are. How much money do you have in your different accounts? How much are you spending every month? I really like to look at it in this sort of 4-step goal system in terms of your money, and 2 of those steps are what you're already spending. One is your base spending, your sustained spending, what you have to spend every month to keep your house, to have the lights on, to have the engines running. I think it's really important to know what that amount is, because there are times in life when things change, when someone loses a job, when you move, and you need to know what the minimum is in case you have to adjust your other spending. The next level is maintain, like know what it costs to maintain your current lifestyle. So I think it's really good to add up at least those two, know what you're already spending on the necessary things, and then know what you're already spending on maintaining your current lifestyle. And then my next step is to put real numbers to your future goals, both in terms of close time future, like within the next 3 to 5 years, and then long-term future. And put real numbers, because people say, oh, I want to retire. And there are tons of retirement calculators out there. But if there comes a time when you want to have enough money coming in from a principal amount that you don't have to work anymore, you need to know how much you want to be spending per year and how much principal you need to generate that much income from a regular retirement account. Of course, there are lots of other ways to look at it. I mean, some people have income properties, some people do annuities, some people have passive income streams, which I think a lot of people within our spheres work on, having ebooks, having courses, having these different things that can continue to bring in income without you putting as much active time in on all of them. So those can all be pieces of that, but if you don't know what you're spending right now, it's hard to really build a system to work towards your goals. So step 1 is know exactly what you're spending right now. Step 2 is put some real numbers on your next goals. So say if you're renting right now, you want to buy a house, a down payment would be a pretty immediate goal next 3 to 5 years. Find the house that you want to buy. It may not be that exact one, but something within the range that you want. How much would you need as a 20% down payment for that? Because it's better to do 20% or more. That way you don't have to get the mortgage insurance and all of that. I know in Canada it's different, Lisa Carpenter, in terms of how much you have to put down. But wherever you're living, like what is the real number goal that you're aiming for? Like how much does a 4-bedroom house, if you want to have an in-house office in a certain neighborhood, what's the basic price of that? And how much do you need to save to be able to get there? And then you can look at how much you can put towards it per month and how long it'll take you. And if you don't like how long it's going to take you, you either need to adjust how much you're putting towards it or get okay with the more months to reach that goal idea. So so that's how I get started with people is getting real numbers for everything that is going on and then setting real goals with real numbers on those goals and looking at how much you need to put aside for them every month. How are you earning that? Like what income stream is currently paying everything that you're making, all the purchases that you're making, all the expenses you have, and do you need to add income streams? Do you need to raise prices? Do you need to get a raise? Then we can strategize on the next steps to take. But if you don't know what those real numbers are, it's really hard to take the next step.
That was hard for me. I know. Yeah. I know, right? I'm like, yes. And there's still part of me that goes, oh, there's so much more to do. So for me and my money, I don't use mint.com. I don't even know if we can use it in Canada, to be honest. And I haven't looked yet.
There is a Canadian version. I looked it up and I think it may be a recent thing, but someone from Canada was asking me about it. So I searched mint.com Canada and I found a Canadian version.
Okay.
If you want, but there are a lot of different options.
So I'm going to have to look at that because what I've been using for the longest time now, which has been working for me, is an app called Spending. And it's this little brown wallet. And it's super simple because a lot of the money tracking apps I found were like, this is making my brain hurt. I just need to know what's coming in and what's going out. And I wanted to be able to track it. So it allows me to put in, all my income as it comes in and mark it with, what category. Is it business? Is it, money from the government, whatever it is. It allows me to put in all my expenses. So again, I can categorize it into business and then I can add notes to it, right? So I can have all my business expenses and then add notes. So it's been really simple for me and it's quick. And I actually, even now, I'm the girl at the counter paying for my stuff and I'm putting it in my phone, which I never used to do. And I make sure I save my receipts. So if I don't put it in at that moment, which is not super healthy for me because I tend to forget, I do have the receipts with me. So that's been really powerful. I would love to hear, though, your tips on, because you're talking about, how to save money for the things that you want to buy. Mm-hmm. But I'm also trying to save money for the things I want to buy, and I'm trying to pay down debt. And that's where I always like I bump heads because I'm like, I don't want to save my money right now. I just want to pay. But again, even thinking of the topic that we're going to dive into in another episode, it's like I am still focusing on that pain point as opposed to building in the pleasure points. But what are your tips for debt repayment that are simple?
The simplest one, if you're in the US, is an app that I love called Ready for Zero. And what I like about this app is you attach it. So Mint.com, you attach it to your actual accounts, and it actually sucks in your transactions. The reason I like that is because of the same problem I had with food logging, which is conveniently forgetting at certain moments to log certain things. And I know a lot of people swear by using cash in terms of it being painful to hand over cash. This has not worked for me because often, like, I'm out with my kids at the store. I have, like, the phone rings. I'm trying to, like, make sure my children don't run out the door that opens automatically when they step towards it, which is, like, the worst thing ever if you have kids with autism. Like, if you have a kid who's likely to bolt a door that's
Right.
yeah. So anyways, me handing over cash, grabbing a receipt, shoving it in my purse, if that's not tracked, that's not great for me. So I am not a cash person just because I want every cent possible tracked. If using cash works for you, then I think you definitely need to do the receipt thing, track it immediately, all of that. But what I like about Ready for Zero is you connect it to your debt. So like I put my mortgage in and I connected my credit cards to it. And it gives you this great visual representation of your credit or your debt balance going down over time based on how much you say you can pay overall. So what it does for you is you look at how much of my income can I put towards debt. And if it's, say, $1,200 a month, it will allocate for you how much you should put to each debt based on, like, my mortgage, obviously I can't adjust it lower than what my mortgage actually is. So it puts the mortgage in at what it has to be. It puts each credit card balance. It prioritizes them in terms of the highest interest rate. So like my car payment is 0.9%. I got a really good deal on my car back when I bought it. That is the very last thing I'm going to pay off because that's even lower than my mortgage. Yeah. So it prioritizes the highest interest first. So out of that $1,200 that you're going to be paying, it is going to put as much as possible towards the high interest and as little as possible towards the low interest. I feel like, did I just freeze?
No,
you're good.
You're good.
Okay. All right, we may have to edit that out. You guys are frozen for me. So, so what it does for you is you tell it how much you can pay towards debt every month, and then it allocates it for you, and it shows you how fast it'll be going down. And then you can play with the little sliders for each debt. If you're like, okay, what if this month I pay $1,500 towards it, which is maybe I don't spend as much or save as much towards something that I want to buy, and I'm putting more towards this debt. It lets you see what the difference will be. However, I do think that women have a lot of guilt about debt. I feel like we have more guilt about debt than a lot of men that I've talked to. Yeah. Not that I work one-on-one with men, because I don't. I just work with women. But I notice a lot of emotional attachment and sometimes even like moral judgment about themselves. There was one woman I was talking to when I was telling her that she could call and try to negotiate down this higher interest credit card, because I was like, well, you have other credit cards at lower interest, and sometimes those lower interest credit cards may even offer you, a balance transfer deal, 0% for 15 months or something like that, if you take that one way down. And you could, adjust it, but it's also a good leverage point to call the higher interest company and ask them to lower your bill. And she said, well, that was the interest it was at when I made the purchase. Like I agreed to this deal where I would pay this much interest on my debt. And she felt like calling and asking for a better deal was reneging on her responsibility. Like she felt a personal moral responsibility to the credit card company. I was trying to explain to her that the person you talk to on the phone is not someone you owe the money to. And often the way credit card companies work, and especially mortgages, like have you guys ever gotten a letter from your mortgage company telling you that your mortgage has been sold to another company?
Yeah.
Because I have. Yeah. They buy it, they trade it, they don't even know who you are. Like there is no, well, yes, you make a purchase with an agreement to pay it off at some point. Like they don't care. If anything, they want you to drag it out as long as possible because then you keep paying them interest and they make money. But to call and ask them to make you happy as a customer, Like, you are their
Right.
customer.
Yeah.
They are servicing you. They're servicing your debt. And you could take that debt and move it to another company that offers you a lower interest rate. And it's really not a moral obligation. It's kind of like taking the money and turning it into the non-judgmental chunk nugget, this like meal planning, like you're talking about. Like, you have to involve the judgment, and you can move it to different places. Like, say it's your birthday and you want to have a chocolate cake on this day, maybe you just sort of adjust what you eat around it on other days, and that's kind of like the way your money fits into your overall system.
Stripping away the emotion. Right?
Yeah.
Stripping away the emotion. One of the things that I had to remember was the dude on the other end of the phone that I'm calling about negotiating my credit card rate or whatever, chances are he's sitting in a pile of debt as well. Like, that's when it clicked for me that the judgment that I had was about, I was judging myself. I was saying that, I was worried about somebody else judging me, but it was really about my own self-judgment. They don't care. Like, they're just doing their job on the other end of the phone. But yeah, we do attach so much emotion. Like, for me, that was a big thing, was neutralizing the emotion that I had around money and my finances, and taking the strategies and not making them things. Like, they're just strategies, right?
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. So,
and I have to say, I really have seen personally, this is going to be a great big old generalization, so watch out, people. But I really think that all three of these issues that we are talking about are way more emotional for women than they are for men. Men tend to be less attached to the emotions and the stories of these things. And that's not to say that they don't also have stories and they don't also have emotions and, deal with things emotionally. But I think that they are generally better at just moving past them, and not like I'll be writing a business email or something, and my husband, who doesn't run his own business, will come in and I'll be like, hey, check on this. I just want to make sure this is worded right. And he's like, delete half of that.
Less is more, right? Less is more.
You don't have to explain yourself. You don't, but it's like that sort of like, we're always trying to make sure everybody's okay and that we're doing what we said that we were going to do. And like, I can't give away this thing because my great aunt gave it to me this one time, and I can't say no to this piece of chocolate cake because I'm at a birthday party and I might offend somebody, and I have to pay for this. I have to pay for my girlfriend's dinner because she bought me dinner 2 years ago, and I don't have a pot to piss in right now, but that's what I'm going to do because that's like the easy, don't want to rock the boat sort of mentality that I think so many of us just walk around. We just do this. Like, we're not even conscious that we're doing it. And we end up suffering, and we're okay with that suffering. We're just, we're like, because again, it's like, we're not really conscious of it. And so, but we're putting ourselves at the bottom of the list.
And we're martyrs.
Oh.
Women tend to be martyrs, more like, I can bear it. I can bear it.
Oh, for sure. I come from a long, strong line of martyrs.
I rip that stuff apart in my coaching. There's just no tolerance for it, because we need to stand in our power. We need to take responsibility for what we want in our lives. And, being a martyr it perpetuates that victim role, that life is happening to us instead of for us. And we can't ever make real change in our life if we're not prepared to look at our behavior patterns and the stuff that we've attached to the stuff. Like, that's the bottom line. So, Lisa, decluttering tips.
Decluttering, I'm going to go super.
You've got some good ones. Oh, yeah.
Could I just stick one more thing in about paying off debt and saving at the same time?
Yeah.
If you find it hard, I love Digit. It's a digit.co, I think, is an app that it has a very interesting way of calculating your spending. So if you hook it up to a checking account, it pulls tiny bits of money out in the way that will impact your spending patterns the least. And I've been using it for over a year now, and I have been super impressed. Like, it has sucked away more than $5,000 for me in very unnoticeable ways month to month. Often it's a few dollars at a time if my balance is high. Like, there are times right before I pay my quarterly taxes from the count that it is in where it puts a few $100s away at a time. But I do think it's really important to save while you're paying down debt, because if you don't, every time life happens to you, you'll be putting it on the credit card again. So, just like you were talking about the victim role, the martyr role, we have to bear it, things happen to us. Having a cash cushion gives you more confidence and the ability to not pile it onto the debt pile as you're trying to pay it down. So I do think it's important to save some as you are paying off the debt.
Great tip.
We'll have to Lisa, sharp. Your turn.
We'll add all of those in the show notes too. So don't worry.
Yeah, those are fantastic tips. Absolutely. And we could definitely do a whole other show just on those things. So my tips about dealing with your clutter in a way that like you can start dealing with it today is really sort of shifting your mindset into taking care of your future self, because everything that you do in your space to maintain your space, to organize your space, to declutter your space is taking care of your future self. So think about it this way. If your stress levels are really high, there's usually a direct correlation between like what your physical space looks like, right? So our inner goings on often is reflected in our outward stuff. So if you're trying to reduce your stress level, if you're trying to feel like you're having more success in your life, one of the best ways to do that is to start dealing with the outside clutter, because they really do reflect one another and they absolutely impact one another. So, I mean, there's the sort of messy desk versus clear desk debate that people love to have that will justify whatever it is that they're doing, because that's the right way. And the other way is, is for losers or something. I don't even know what that is, but it's a funny thing that we do, because it's a good out for us to just keep doing what it is that we're doing. But it really does impact your life if you can't find really basic things in your space, like your bills, like your kids' permission forms, like your kids' lunchbox, like the food in your kitchen, and that might sound like duh, but I'm here to tell you that most of my clients, when I go into their spaces, they have entire swaths of their homes that are really dysfunctional. And I'm not talking about they're not beautiful and lovely. I'm talking about function. So if you can't make chicken breast because you have no cookie sheet or you have no roasting pan, that is not a functional space, right? Or if your kitchen counters are so covered in stuff that there's no work surface, so that you're only able to work in like 1 square foot, this is not a functional space. So taking care of some of those things in your life that can gain you some functionality will really help you very quickly feel better in your life, because otherwise you're walking through life tripping over stuff all day long, literally and figuratively. So if you can't find, you're out of shampoo, but you have no idea, and you keep buying more shampoo, and you end up with like 20 bottles of shampoo. You're laughing because it's true.
No.
But we might always be at a conditioner because we keep forgetting to write it down. So we don't have like a way to capture that information. So it's like these little things throughout our lives that if you just actually stop your behavior, stop your actions, stop your forward momentum, and just pay attention to what it is that you're actually doing. Again, it's about becoming conscious. It's like the same thing that you two were talking about. There is so much information. We have to mine our own data. We have to look at whatever it is that we're actually doing and analyze it so that we can problem solve. Because this has nothing to do with lack of skills or intellect. This has to do with lack of attention. It's not like there's no information about any of these 3 topics that we're talking about. There's a ton of information about these topics, but it's a matter of getting conscious and stopping what it is that we're doing and being willing to sit in the discomfort, as Lisa Carpenter is so fond of saying. And I think about that all the time in my own life, because it's true. Our impulse is to ameliorate that and make it go away, do something else with that discomfort. And usually the thing that we're covering up with is making the problem worse.
Yeah.
So if we can just stop and sit and take, a step back, or even just sit where we are and just observe what we're doing and give ourselves the mental space to actually come up with some solutions, they're there. We already have our own answers. We just have to be still long enough to be able to pay attention to them. My other tip is get more garbage cans.
Oh, I love that. Okay. That's simple. So we should just have our houses like with a bigger garbage pan in every room.
It's so true. Seriously, people will often make throwing things away or recycling. I'm a big environmentalist, so please recycle things as much as humanly possible, but don't let that be an impediment, right? Don't let being a socially conscious, environmentally conscious person be an impediment on getting crap out of your house, okay? You need to stop spending as much. You need to be more conscious of what you're spending your stuff on, and you need to be able to get it out of your space. So garbage cans, recycling cans, I see this all the time where people will be like, they'll have like this massive garbage can in the kitchen, and that's like the only one for the whole floor. There might be like a little tiny garbage can in the bathroom, and that's it. It's like, okay, people, where's this stuff gonna go? And so then there's, Diet Coke cans on the coffee table, and, the kids' homework that's sort of slithered onto the floor and has sat there for 2 weeks, and some broken pencils, whatever. It's not like it's a huge amount of stuff, but it's enough stuff that it sort of mentally drags us down, and we don't feel as good in our space, and we feel like we don't have as much control over our lives because there's stuff just sort of everywhere. And that stuff talks to us. Those little pencils on the floor and piles of things that say, do something with me. What's wrong with you? That it really does add up. So yeah, get some garbage cans.
The same clutter and mental bandwidth that it takes up, right? In our brain.
For sure.
So can I just share something, Lisa, from my household that is so pertinent to that? So my husband he's British, and somehow over there they have a more complex recycling system than here in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is a very environmentally conscious town, but we don't recycle glass.
Yeah.
So my husband reads these books and these different things, how if everyone just used everything twice, it would make it better. So for his garden, he'll save like a plastic thing that I bought a salad in and want to plant something in it. But in the meantime, it's sitting around somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And
totally.
And there was a point where we really liked these Bon Mama jams. Do you know the Bon Mama jams?
Yeah.
So nice. So at one point I was like, okay, I got rid of all of our plastic cups because we had this point where I was like, let's not have our food in plastic anymore. We're trying to keep it in glass or in metal, or not save it as long, for one thing, because food goes bad, and you don't need to save it for more than a day or two, right? Hopefully you eat your leftovers the next day is what we're trying to do. But so I started saving those, but then he started saving every jar. And so we have all these kind of odd sized jars now because they're glass and we can't recycle them, and we shouldn't just throw them away, right? But my cupboards have really bizarre shaped and sized jars. Like, well, a few I like. My pickle jar, I do like to drink this.
I love that you do that.
Huge. But I only really need one of these for me, so we have a lot of those, and that's why, is because he doesn't want to throw something away without reusing it. And it is cluttering up the kitchen.
Wow. Yeah. There's no recycling depot that you can go take your glass and stuff to? Like a separate...
Not for glass. We discovered there's a place that collects glass that you can drive it to, but what they do is they crunch it up and put a layer of glass into our landfill. So it's still going into the landfill. It's just making this layer that I guess helps to pack things down or something. But so when he found out it wasn't actually being recycled, and that we were making all these trips of driving the glass to this certain place and then it was going in the landfill. Anyways, it kind of felt like, I wish they would do a glass recycling here. They do cardboard and paper. So we have a separate, in our kitchen, we have a big kitchen trash can, and next to it is the recycling trash can for boxes, paper, things like that. And then here in my office, I have my shredder, and I recycle the shredded stuff, and then I have a regular trash can for other things. But
we have to recycle everything here. Everything that's recycled. We only get garbage pickup once every 2 weeks. And we have a composting program in the city. So I don't have that much garbage because, one, I don't have a lot of clutter anymore. I've gotten much better. And my husband is a total minimalist. And two, I don't buy a lot of foods that come from packages. So there's not a lot of waste, right? Like that is very minimal. So all of that can get recycled and composted, which is cool.
That is probably what we need to do. We do have our own compost by the garden, which it's one of those turnable ones that you turn over and stuff. And we do have our own garden. It's just we don't have a super long growing season. So we did make a greenhouse. You can kind of see how my husband's things escalate here. Like we're trying to grow his own food, but we would get a frost and it would kill it. So we built a greenhouse, and So he's trying very, very hard. But I think you're right, Lisa. I think that is the trick, is to have less packaged.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
And put them in all the, like I was thinking even our lettuce, going to the farmer's market is where they just put it in boxes, but getting lettuce, often it still goes into a bag. We do have this big area of like plastic bags and paper bags, and now Stu stuffs the tote bags in all the cars, because I'm the one who forgets to bring the bags to the grocery store, and then I end up bringing my stuff home in a bag instead of in the tote bag. But you're right, it all adds up. So
it really does.
We're making efforts in our house, but we have a few areas where I'm just like, we do buy pickled things. I'm trying to think of who it was. The probiotic thing of the pickle jars, the sauerkraut, the kimchis, things like that. I don't make those at home because, and Lisa, I love it that you admitted that you are not someone who loves to cook, because I think that makes your perspective and your program easier for people like me, who I'm happy to do, like we've started doing Sunday roast with my mom, which is, I'm like, okay, a big meal where we're like planning it out and it takes a few hours to make, or like a holiday meal. But on a day-to-day, I am not a lover of cooking. I find it.
I think we should do a whole other show on this topic, because clearly we have a lot to say on this. And I think that it would be really good to have a conversation about like, what are some of those things that we could batch and do ahead for ourselves in order to get us forward in all three of these categories, like how can we be working ahead and taking care of our future selves, as I mentioned before. I think that's shifting that thinking into that this is about being kind to yourself and not punishing yourself. This is about making your overall life much nicer, even if it's uncomfortable to do the thing that we're doing at the moment, like figuring out what your debt is, or figuring out how you're going to pay for something, or meal planning, or whatever the thing is that we perceive as being difficult is really about self-care. So thank you guys so much for this show. I think this has been a good one, and I hope that people get a lot out of it. Please be sure to rate, like, subscribe, share with your friends. We would love to have you over in our Facebook group. We will have a link to our Facebook group in the show notes, where we will be carrying on this conversation. And you can feel free to pop over there. Come say hi to us. And if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer in the future, or topics for one of these podcasts, please come over to the group and let us know, and we will be sure to cover those topics. Okay, everyone, thanks. Bye.
Thanks. See you next time.